Diffie-Hellman key exchange is a specific method of exchanging cryptographic keys. It is one of the earliest practical examples of key exchange implemented within the field of cryptography. The Diffie-Hellman key exchange method allows two parties that have no prior knowledge of each other to jointly establish a shared secret key over an insecure communications channel. This key can then be used to encrypt subsequent communications using a symmetric key cipher. The scheme was first published by Whitfield, Diffie and Martin Hellman in 1976, although it had been separately invented a few years earlier within GCHQ, the British Signals Intelligence Agency, by James H. Ellis, Clifford Cox and Malcolm J. Williamson, but was kept classified. Although Diffie-Hellman key agreement itself is an anonymous key agreement protocol, it provides the basis for a variety of authenticated protocols, and is used to provide perfect forward secrecy in transport layer security's ephemeral modes. The method was followed shortly afterwards by RSA, an implementation of public key cryptography using asymmetric algorithms. In 2002, Hellman suggested the algorithm be called Diffie-Hellman-Merkle key exchange in recognition of Ralph Merkle's contribution to the invention of public key cryptography, writing, "The system has since become known as Diffie-Hellman key exchange. While that system was first described in a paper by Diffie and me, it is a public key distribution system, a concept developed by Merkle, and hence should be called Diffie-Hellman-Merkle key exchange if names are to be associated with it. I hope this small pulpit might help in that endeavor to recognize Merkle's equal contribution to the invention of public key cryptography." U.S. Patent 4,200,770, from 1977 is now expired and describes the algorithm. It credits Hellman, Diffie, and Merkle as inventors. Description: Diffie-Hellman establishes a shared secret that can be used for secret communications while exchanging data over a public network. The following diagram illustrates the general idea of the key exchange by using colors instead of a very large number. The crucial part of the process is that Alice and Bob exchange their secret colors in a mix only. Finally, this generates an identical key that is computationally difficult to reverse for another party that might have been listening in on them. Alice and Bob now use this common secret to encrypt and decrypt their sent and received data. Note that the starting color is arbitrary, but is agreed on in advance by Alice and Bob. The starting color is assumed to be known to any eavesdropping opponent. It may even be public. Cryptographic explanation: the simplest and the original implementation of the protocol uses the multiplicative group of integers modulo p, where p is prime, and a primitive root modulo p. Here is an example of the protocol, with non-secret values in blue, and secret values in red. Alice and Bob agree to use a prime number p equals 23 and base g equals 5. Alice chooses a secret integer a equals 6, then sends Bob a equals gar mod p, a equals 56 mod 23 equals 8. Bob chooses a secret integer b equals 15, then sends Alice b equals gb mod p, b equals 515 mod 23 equals 19. Alice computes s equals bar mod p, s equals 196 mod 23 equals 2. Bob computes s equals ab mod p, s equals 815 mod 23 equals 2. Alice and Bob now share a secret. Both Alice and Bob have arrived at the same value, because b and a are equal mod p. Note that only a, b, and are kept secret. All the other values are euro p, g, gar mod p, and gb mod p a euro are sent in the clear. Once Alice and Bob compute the shared secret, they can use it as an encryption key, known only to them, for sending messages across the same open communications channel. Of course, much larger values of a, b, and p would be needed to make this example secure, since there are only 23 possible results of n mod 23. However, if p is a prime of at least 300 digits, and a and b are at least 100 digits long, then even the fastest modern computers cannot find a given only g, p, gb mod p and gar mod p. The problem such a computer needs to solve is called the discrete logarithm problem. Note that g need not be large at all, and in practice is usually a small prime because primitive roots usually are quite numerous. Generalization to other groups. Here's a more general description of the protocol, in which all the powers are computed modulo p. Alice and Bob agree on a finite cyclic group G and a generating element G and G. We will write the group G multiplicatively. Alice picks a random natural number A and sends GA to Bob. Bob picks a random natural number B and sends GB to Alice. Alice computes A. Bob computes B. Both Alice and Bob are now in possession of the group element GAB, which can serve as the shared secret key. The values of A and B are the same because groups are power associative. In order to decrypt a message M, send as MGAB, Bob must first compute here 1, as follows: Bob knows G, B, and GA. Lagrange's theorem in group theory establishes that from the construction of G, XG equals 1 for all X and G, Bob then calculates GAB equals GA, GAB equals GA GA AB equals GA G GA AB equals AGA AB equals 1 AGA AB equals GA AB equals a 1. When Alice sends Bob the encrypted message, MGAB, Bob applies a 1 and recovers MGAB, GAB, a 1 equals M, 1, equals M. Secrecy chart. The chart below depicts who knows what, again with non-secret values in blue, and secret values in red. Here Eve is an eavesdropper. She watches what is sent between Alice and Bob, but she does not alter the contents of their communications. G equals public base, known to Alice, Bob, and Eve. G equals 5, P equals public number, known to Alice, Bob, and Eve. P equals 23 Aries equals Alice's private key, known only to Alice. A equals 6, B equals Bob's private key known only to Bob. B equals 15 Aries equals Alice's public key, known to Alice, Bob, and Eve. A equals GA mod P equals 8 bytes equals Bob's public key, known to Alice, Bob, and Eve. B equals GB mod P equals 19, now S equals the shared secret key and it is known to both Alice and Bob, but not to Eve. S equals 2, note. It should be difficult for Alice to solve for Bob's private key or for Bob to solve for Alice's private key. If it is not difficult for Alice to solve for Bob's private key, Eve may simply substitute her own private/public key pair, plug Bob's public key into her private key, produce a fake shared secret key, and solve for Bob's private key. Another demonstration of Diffie-Hellman is given here. Operation with more than two parties. Diffie-Hellman key agreement is not limited to negotiating a key shared by only two participants. Any number of users can take part in an agreement by performing iterations of the agreement protocol and exchanging intermediate data. For example, Alice, Bob, and Carol could participate in a Diffie-Hellman agreement as follows: with all operations taken to be modulo, the parties agree on the algorithm parameters and the parties generate their private keys, named, and Alice computes and sends it to Bob. Bob computes and sends it to Carol. Carol computes and uses it as her secret. Bob computes and sends it to Carol. Carol computes and sends it to Alice. Alice computes and uses it as her secret. Carol computes and sends it to Alice. Alice computes and sends it to Bob. Bob computes and uses it as his secret. An eavesdropper has been able to see, but cannot use any combination of these to reproduce. To extend this mechanism to larger groups, two basic principles must be followed, starting with an A-OEM till Euro key consisting only of, the secret is made by raising the current value to every participant to Euro unregistered trademark S private exponent once, in any order. Any intermediate value may be revealed publicly, but the final value constitutes the shared secret and hence must never be revealed publicly. Thus, each user must obtain their copy of the secret by applying their own private key last. These principles leave open various options for choosing in which order participants contribute to keys. The simplest and most obvious solution is to arrange the participants in a circle and have keys rotate around the circle, until eventually every key has been contributed to by all participants and each participant has contributed to keys. However, this requires that every participant perform modular exponentiations. by choosing a more optimal order, and relying on the fact that keys can be duplicated, it is possible to reduce the number of the modular exponentiations performed by each participant to using a divide-and-conquer style approach, given here for 8 participants. Participants A, B, C, and D each perform one exponentiation, yielding. This value is sent to E, F, G, and H. In return, participants A, B, C, and D receive. Participants A and B each perform one exponentiation, yielding, which they send to C and D, while C and D do the same, yielding, which they send to A and B. Participant A performs an exponentiation, yielding, which it sends to B. Similarly, B sends to A. C and D do similarly. Participant A performs one final exponentiation, yielding the secret, while B does the same to get. Again, C and D do similarly. Participants E through H simultaneously perform the same operations using as their starting point. Once this operation has been completed, all participants will possess the secret, but each participant will have performed only 4 modular exponentiations, rather than the 8 implied by a simple circular arrangement. Security: the protocol is considered secure against eavesdroppers if G and G are chosen properly. The eavesdropper would have to solve the Diffie-Hellman problem to obtain GAB. This is currently considered difficult. An efficient algorithm to solve the discrete logarithm problem would make it easy to compute A or B and solve the Diffie-Hellman problem, making this and many other public key crypto systems insecure. Fields of small characteristic may be less secure. The order of G should have a large prime factor to prevent use of the Diffie-Hellman algorithm to obtain A or B. For this reason, a Sophie-Germain prime Q is sometimes used to calculate P equals 2Q plus 1, called a safe prime, since the order of G is then only divisible by 2 and Q. G is then sometimes chosen to generate the order Q subgroup of G, rather than G, so that the legend symbol of GAR never reveals the low-order bit of A. If Alice and Bob use random number generators whose outputs are not completely random and can be predicted to some extent, then Eve's task is much easier. The secret integers A and B are discarded at the end of the session. Therefore, Diffie-Hellman key exchange by itself trivially achieves perfect forward secrecy because no long-term private keying material exists to be disclosed. In the original description, the Diffie-Hellman exchange by itself does not provide authentication of the communicating parties and is thus vulnerable to a man-in-the-middle attack. Mallory may establish 2 distinct key exchanges, one with Alice and the other with Bob, effectively masquerading as Alice to Bob, and vice versa, allowing her to decrypt, then re-encrypt, the messages passed between them. Note that Mallory must continue to be in the middle, transferring messages every time Alice and Bob communicate. If she is ever absent, her previous presence is then revealed to Alice and Bob. They will know that all of their private conversations had been intercepted and decoded by someone in the channel. A method to authenticate the communicating parties to each other is generally needed to prevent this type of attack. Variants of Diffie-Hellman, such as STS protocol, may be used instead to avoid these types of attacks. Other uses: password authenticated key agreement. When Alice and Bob share a password, they may use a password authenticated key agreement form of Diffie-Hellman to prevent man-in-the-middle attacks. One simple scheme is to compare the hash of S concatenated with the password calculated independently on both ends of channel. A feature of these schemes is that an attacker can only test one specific password on each iteration with the other party, and so the system provides good security with relatively weak passwords. This approach is described in ITUT Recommendation X1035, which is used by the GHN Home Networking Standard. Public key: it is also possible to use Diffie-Hellman as part of the public key infrastructure. Alice's public key is simply to send her a message. Bob chooses a random B and then sends Alice together with the message encrypted with symmetric key. Only Alice can decrypt the message because only she has A shared public key also prevents man-in-the-middle attacks. In practice, Diffie-Hellman is not used in this way, with RSA being the dominant public key algorithm. This is largely for historical and commercial reasons, namely that RSA security created a certificate authority for key signing that became Vera Sign. Diffie-Hellman cannot be used to sign certificates. However, the ALGAML and ESA signature algorithms are mathematically related to it, as well as MQV, STS and the IKE component of the IPsec protocol suite for securing Internet Protocol communications. Cryptocurrency: the sender can produce only the public part of the key, whereas only the receiver can compute the private part. Because of that, the receiver is the only one who can release the funds after the transaction is committed. He needs to perform a single formula check on each transaction to establish if it belongs to him. This process involves his private key, therefore no third party can perform this check and discover the link between the one-time key generated by the sender and the receiver's unique public address. See also. Notes: synonyms of Diffie-Hellman key exchange include Diffie-Hellman key agreement, Diffie-Hellman key establishment, Diffie-Hellman key negotiation, exponential key exchange, Diffie-Hellman protocol, Diffie-Hellman handshake. References: Dieter Goleman. Computer Security 2nd edition, West Sussex, England, John Wiley & Sons, Limited. The Possibility of Non-Secret Digital Encryption, J. H. Ellis, January 1970. Non-Secret Encryption Using a Finite Field, M. J. Williamson, January 21, 1974. Thoughts on Cheaper Non-Secret Encryption, M. J. Williamson, August 10, 1976. Diffie, W. Hellman, M. New Directions in Cryptography. IEEE Transactions on Information Theory 22, 644 Euro 654 doi, 10.1109/tit. 1976.105563 Cryptographic Apparatus and Method. Martin E. Hellman, Bailey W. Diffie, and Ralph C. Merkel, U.S. Patent 4,200,770, April 29, 1980. The History of Non-Secret Encryption, J. H. Ellis, 1987, The First 10 Years of Public Key Cryptography, Whitfield Diffie, Proceedings of the IEEE, Volume 76, No. 5, May 1988, pp. 560 Euro 577, Meanses, Alfred. Van Washot, Paul. Vanstone, Scott. Handbook of Applied Cryptography, Boca Raton, Florida, CRC Press. ISBN 0-8493-8523-7. Singh, Simon. The Code Book, The Evolution of Secrecy from Mary Queen of Scots to Quantum Cryptography, New York, Doubleday. ISBN 0-385-49531-5. An Overview of Public Key Cryptography. Martin E. Hellman, IEEE Communications Magazine, May 2002, pp. 42 Euro 49. External links: Public Key Cryptography, Diffie-Hellman Key Exchange, a 5-minute YouTube video by Khan Academy faculty member Britt Cruz, oral history interview with Martin Hellman, Charles Babbage Institute, University of Minnesota. Leading cryptography scholar Martin Hellman discusses the circumstances and fundamental insights of his invention of public key cryptography with collaborators Whitfield Diffie and Ralph Merkel at Stanford University in the mid-1970s. RFC 2631 Euro Diffie-Hellman Key Agreement Method Erie Scholar, June 1999. Summary of ANSIX 9.42 Agreement of Symmetric Keys Using Discrete Logarithm Cryptography, Diffie-Hellman Key Exchange A non-mathematician A unregistered trademark S. Explanation by Keith Palmgren, Crypt DH Perl Module from CPAN, Hands-on Diffie-Hellman Demonstration, C. Implementation using GNU Multiple Precision Arithmetic Library, Diffie-Hellman in 2 Lines of Perl, Smart Account Management, talk by Martin Hellman in 2007, Google Video.